Hi, everybody. Welcome to the OnStage Blog Theater Podcast. And this is the show where we love to talk about all things theater and stage. And we have a ton of fun topics coming up today. And I'm Theatre Critic Rachel Wagner. And today, Chris Peterson is here.
Hello, hello.
And Greg Ehrhardt is here.
I'm here and I'm happy. Hello, hello. What's
Yes,
going
we're
on?
both doing well. And we have a bunch of fun news topics to talk about out of the gate. And one of those is about the TikTok potential ban, and also them like removing a whole bunch of songs that could be used in TikToks previously. And Chris, did you have thoughts about this?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting situation, especially starting off with I believe it was Universal Music that was threatening to remove all of their properties and things like that. So that would be like shows like Wicked, for instance. Like you wouldn't be able to actually find Wicked music on TikTok anymore, and that would make a certain subsection of fans probably panic, especially with the movie coming out. So yeah, it's interesting about how this is going to impact influencer culture, especially with TikTok influencers, which have risen. I will be honest, out of all the social media influencing that we've seen in the past decade since OnStage Blog has been around, there's been nothing like TikTok in terms of the rise, the variety, the
Yeah.
agency that the industry gives these people. Um, and so a ban would certainly be a momentous change in all this. Greg, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, we published that editorial on it, which was interesting because what we ended up publishing wasn't where we thought it was going to land. I mean, our initial thoughts was, Chris, I think we were going to call it the hypocrisy of banning or forcing TikTok to divest when all the other social medias are just as problematic in terms of what they allow on there, some of the hateful speech and all that. But
Mhm.
when we really started researching this, boy, TikTok is really, really problematic, not just from a national security concern, which is why they're passing this bill, but just in terms of, I didn't realize, just being fully transparent, some of the things that China has done, not only just to squelch free speech on the platform, but also theater promoting LGBTQ rights, and it's just and here's the thing. All right, China owns 1% of it. Okay, so they're not majority shareholder, but again, according to China law, any company that's originates in China, they have to let the government of China influence its data and how it does it. I'm not stating that perfectly correct, so pardon me, I'm going on the fly, but just that China, the government of China has immense influence on what goes on the app on TikTok, and it has access to every single one of your data. Particularly if it's concerned about some of these freedom issues, and some of the issues that we as a theater community holds dear. It really, Chris, we were just sharing it. We're just like, we have to, again, we didn't say we support it, but like we both definitely think theater is going to be better off without it, and going on these other platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where, I mean, there are some people that called us old men, like, be like, stop complaining about the newfangled contraption. It's not that. It's not that at all. And,
As a
you
platform,
know,
it's brilliant. It's a brilliant platform.
yeah. But the things that you highlighted in the article with what China is doing, what the background of China's involvement with TikTok, this is not like conspiracy theorists like tin hat stuff. This is what's out there. And
We sourced
um
this incredible, and that's the thing. Like, people calling us xenophobes, okay, like we sourced it like from very public
yeah,
records. This is all out there. This is not anything we fantasize.
yeah.
I
That's
get it. Some
my
people like their stuff.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
don't.
I guess my feeling is that I don't think that it it feels like it's treating the symptom and not the disease, because I think that it'll just kick the can down the road of the next social media apparatus that will then be used by people and will have the same problems and the same. And I mean, do I have the solution? No, but just banning it seems like it just doesn't seem, it seems like a temporary band-aid at best. And so that's and it'll affect the livelihood of thousands of people that rely on TikTok for their income. And TikTok has been a very good place for artists in particular to showcase their skills outside of the studio system, so that people could hear their music without having to have a record deal or a contract or any of that kind of thing, and they could get followings and then and build a lot of momentum from TikTok, and that's just not available on any of the other platforms right now. And again, it'll probably take half a second for there to be a new platform that will then replace it, and we'll have the same problems and the same things, going on. I mean, how many have we already had at this point? It wasn't too long ago where MySpace was the big one, so I guess that's my feeling of like it feels like something politicians do to make it sound like they're being proactive in doing things, but it's actually not doing much, and it actually hurts people. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is though, so I can't tell you,
Yeah, I
like
mean, the
what
thing
to
is,
do.
these creators are on TikTok are at unique risk, which is why I tried to, or I'm sure they're making money, but they're TikTok is kind of a one of one when it comes to social media platforms. There's no other social media platform I'm aware of that's free by law has to hand over their data to the government of China, who is like the number one. I don't know about number one, but they're a big abuser of human rights, and they use this
Mm-hmm.
data to build profiles of everybody, that they can in the country for potential blackmail use. This is all documented. I mean, none of this is not me theorizing what could be. This is what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
um, go ahead, Chris.
I was just saying, what's interesting is this industry, the theater and Broadway industry, is now really starting to figure out how can we pay influencers on TikTok? How can we get them on our side to promote our shows? There's several organizations now that have actually announced that they've signed TikTok influencers, theater
Mm-hmm.
influencers to, not I would let's not call it lucrative, but they're getting paid to promote shows. And
Yeah.
with no offense to the majority of TikTok influencers, but they're not critics. They're not people that operate under a certain standard of ethics when it comes to certain things. So if they're given free tickets, if they're allowed to dress rehearsals or allowed to come into a rehearsal studio and watch a live rehearsal, chances are they're going to probably be pretty positive and upbeat about the show. And there are some
That's
of
true.
them that have been, and we're starting to see the preposterous results of this. So the producers behind The Notebook, the producers behind Water for Elephants have done this where they've paid influencers to come and see their show, and everybody's posting all about TikTok being like, "Oh my God, The Notebook, it's amazing," and the Water for Elephants is amazing. And then the critics go see it, and it's night and day. The critics are like, "This
Yeah.
show is terrible." So, and the TikTok influencers are so perplexed right now because they're like, "What? I don't understand." Well, the reason why is because the producers treated you so nice. They gave you center orchestra seats to go see the show. It's not like you're gonna blast it, so you're gonna have a great
Yeah, and
time.
it's not always kind of duplicitous. Like it's not like somebody saying, "Oh, I really hated this," but I'm going to say I liked it because I've been paid. It's not. I mean, I deal with this all the time as a critic. That the temptations of different different swag and different stuff like that. I mean, not as much as people who live in LA, but still, and it you do have to consciously say, like, I'm not gonna. There's just something mentally about the human brain that when you have these kinds of experiences, you want to feel more positive about it. Like, I don't think it's necessarily like a real. Sometimes I think it's done sort of unconsciously. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That it's just sort of a human reaction of like, I've had this positive experience, therefore I'm going to say positive things. And I mean, and frankly, that's probably why I don't get invited to a lot of things and stuff, because they know that I'm not going to do that. But you have to be really careful. It's hard, and like the what was I mean, Netflix did it all the time, but they definitely did it with Naiad, for instance, this last award season. They
Mm-hmm.
sent everybody, even me, a box with all kinds of swag and different stuff. And they flew out a whole bunch of critics for a special screening in Los Angeles. And sure enough, Naiad got a ton more love than people thought it would at the Oscars. And that's just the game. It's unfortunate, but then you take, so that's with actual critics that these people are able to kind of wine and dine. Because so you take that and you put it to influencers who aren't, supposed to be objective critics. They're not. Like, their whole job is to puff things up. That's what they do. And so it's even more so for people that don't have sort of the ethical burden of criticism. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. And what was very interesting during the writer's strike, there were a lot of people who tried to claim that critics shouldn't be reviewing movies during the writer's strike because we are part of writing about film, I guess, and we were like promoting the films. And it was just interesting how many people grouped criticism with promotion, with influencers. And I'm like, no, it is not the same thing. We are not promoters of the films. And but there were a lot of people who said, "Oh, well, critics shouldn't review." In fact, the WGA had to come out and say it's okay for critics to review during the strike. So I don't know. It's a fascinating dynamic going on right now.
Bring it back to sort of what do the TikTok influencers do now? And this is a revenue stream. There's a couple of things. One is so let's get a couple throat clearing things out of the way. I don't think TikTok is going to be banned. I think if they do pass this, I think what will probably happen is they'll find another group to sell to based in America, and they'll probably have a wink wink with China. Say there's been some type of relationship. That'll probably be a lot harder to establish. That, but two is if a ban does happen, look, there could be another social media platform that's going to emulate TikTok. I mean, look, Facebook is already emulating the algorithms behind TikTok, through the reels and all that stuff.
Snapchat.
There's other places these places can go. Oh, Snap. I still don't understand Snapchat, but that's for a whole other discussion. But there's places to go. But more to the point, what I'll say is, and I would say learn from also OnStage Blog, which is use social media as a tool, not as your sole source of income. Basically, like use it as a tool to drive revenue, but establish a direct. Like, don't be dependent on any of these social media companies for your reach, because again, they control the throttles, they control how much you make, and establish that direct relationship with your audience through your own website. Build your own website, do your own app, do whatever it is you want, because you're putting yourself at the mercy of either the social media algorithms or the Google search algorithms. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, and guess what, you're at their mercy.
But I do think it's a mistake to assume that all TikTok creators are influencers, because there are people who genuinely make actual content for short form videos. Like I said, whether it's become a real source for musicians to post their covers and their songs, and to get outside of the studio system so that they can get heard without a record contract. But then a lot of people do, like my friend Amber, she has been very successful in these like comedic skits that she does. And she does them on all the platforms. But yeah, I mean, it's not all like, it's not all influencers.
No, and I'm talking beyond influencers, anybody who gets income on it, but establish a direct relationship with the audience. So a lot of what the successful influencers across any genre, cooking, critics, whatever, they use social media to drive them to their website or their app or whatever. They get their email address, they establish that direct relationship or the subscription, because then once you have that direct relationship, you control the terms of the engagement, how much you make, all that. It's hard. I'm making it sound easy. It is not easy. But but that's your path to true independence, because otherwise, look, right now it's TikTok. A year from now it might be YouTube. That does say, what, we're going to throttle anybody that's talking about theater. No, that's extreme, but it could be any. We're only going to emphasize, we're going to throttle anybody over the age of 40. Because we want to amplify the next generation. Kick it out. It's stuff like that's happening right now. So We'll see what happens, but again, I truly don't think it's a reason for despair. It's going to be a transition at best, and new technology will come out that will be even better.
Well, let's talk real quick about what we've been watching. We like to do this every so often. And I'll kind of go first. I just came back from Austin, Texas, the South by Southwest Film Festival. And unfortunately, I got kind of sick. You can see here it's still hanging on. But I was able to, while I was there, it was really fun. I contacted City Theater Austin, and they were doing Dancing at Lugnasa, which I had never seen before. It's a Tony Award winning play set in Ireland in the 1936, I think. It's about these five sisters, and it was really charming. The theater was in a church. And they didn't even have any mics, which I found very impressive. But they just projected well, and it was it was kind of similar to like a black box almost experience. It was like, real small and intimate. And but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the play. And it was just fun to get to be a part of another community. So
Awesome.
that was really cool. And then I also saw Come From Away, the national tour, with my friends. And it was the first time I'd seen it live. I'd seen the pro shot, which was wonderful. But what a great show! So much heart, so much soul, and it's also mercifully short, which I really appreciate.
How long is it?
It's like 1 hour 40, no intermission.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
which especially because I was not feeling good, so I just really appreciated
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we could be in and out. And I did take a COVID test. It was just allergies, so it wasn't contagious or anything. But anyway, it was a really wonderful experience to see, and great show.
Was that your first time
Nice.
seeing that, Rachel?
Yeah, I'd seen the pro shot on
Oh,
Apple
I'm sorry. You
on
said okay.
Apple, but I had
Yeah.
never seen it live, so that was very
Okay.
cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So, what about you, Chris? Have you gotten to see anything recently?
Not really. In terms of live theater, no. My sadly, I'm now living in a community that doesn't do a lot of regional productions, and
Hmm.
the community theater is terrible here. Sorry. Like I just gotta say, I won't say the name of the company, but they're atrocious. And
Uh-oh.
I want to hear a review. I want to see a review of this. You got to go.
oh my God,
Oh, shoot.
like it's just people that love theater but shouldn't be have no business doing it. And so yeah, haven't seen anything. Watching a lot of great TV. The Manhunt miniseries on Apple TV is fabulous. It's all about the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth following the assassination of Lincoln, and
Oh,
it's
that sounds good.
incredible. It's
There,
incredible.
it's good.
So
Yeah, I've got to watch that.
yeah. And they filmed it in Savannah, which I found out because there were a couple times I was like, wait a second, I know that street. So that was really cool. So
Yeah, good. Cool. What
Greg, how
about you,
about you?
Greg?
So yeah, I actually watched some live theater. I made my way down to Hudson Square in New York to see. We were invited to see Witches in Salem, which is ironically a comedy about the Salem witch trials, but not the one we were talking about on a previous episode. When we were saying when Chris was arguing, we had the debate that it was in poor taste to kind of do a comedy about the Salem witch trials. But what I thought was interesting, so we, went to see it to kind of get a flavor of whether a comedy like this would pass our test, and our primary test was, will they treat the injustice with solemnity, the victims? So they treat the victims somebody while making fun of the villains or the environment, whatever. And they did do that really well. So there was like the first act was a huge absurd farce, I would say, of the men particularly, especially Reverend Paris, and his obsession with telling people he was from Harvard and his love of firewood and being paid in firewood, all that stuff. But the second act was really much more serious, where they went through the trials. There's still obviously comedic bits throughout. But my review is on the website onstageblog.com, so check it out, where I get into a little bit more detail about where I think it worked in terms of being a comedy about a very dark period of the world history and where it worked. But what I want to ask you two about was, especially you, Rachel, because you review a lot of theater. When you were reviewing a comedy and the comedy just doesn't work for you. It's just not your style of comedy. How do you review that? Are you just like, nope, not funny because I didn't laugh at it, and here's why I didn't think it was funny? Or do you try to be a little bit more neutral, saying, well, the audience I was with laughed, at these bits and these bits, even though I didn't.
Mhm. I mean, I think in general, it's always hard when you're reviewing live theater and you like it's just hard because like the theater company can't really change the material that much. So how much do you hold them responsible for the material versus that you just might not like, but like they're doing a good job in their performances, the stagings. So a lot of times that's what I might focus on is the
Yeah.
staging, the costumes, the other production. Are the performances good? That kind of a thing. And I'm trying to think of like a comedy that I didn't like. I mean, I don't know. Like recently, I really didn't like Bonnie and Clyde, but that's not really a comedy. Um, but they did an absolutely brilliant job. Like all the acting was excellent, the singing was really good, the staging, production, all was good. I just didn't like the show, and
Yeah.
so that's what's tricky, I think, in writing writing a review of theater, I think.
So, Chris, here's where I landed. I want to get your take because this was very, it's the humor. I don't know if this is true because I haven't watched too much British comedy, especially old British comedy, but this seemed British in terms of execution, where it's like every character had just a personality quirk, and that personality quirk is just enhanced to the nth degree, where it's just like they're doing outrageous things, they're really loud, it's very fast paced, they're talking ridiculously, they're obsessed with really weird things. It's just not my style of humor. So it's just like I kind of prefer a little more subtle humor, a little more wordplay, a little less, loud humor, I guess. But I just can't kill it on those grounds because that's what it is, and people laugh during it. So how did you handle that situation if you're as a critic?
Well, it's interesting, and you nailed it right on the head. I mean, Matt Cox, who wrote it. I mean, for those of you who don't know, he did Puffs, which is the Harry Potter
Which
parody
I don't like.
show.
That's one I don't like.
So there you
Comedy.
go. So
Don't
Oh,
same
like it.
okay.
guy.
Yeah.
I don't think you like
And
this then, because I bet they're kind of the same type of humor.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's I when I read your review, I was like, yeah, that sounds like Matt to me. But what's interesting is I'm a peer pressure guy. So look, if even if I don't find it funny, but the majority of the audience is laughing at certain gags, in my report or review, I'll say, look, okay, it was clearly going over with the crowd and certain things, but I'll use this as an example. I'll name him because I don't think he listens to the podcast. But Sean Hayes. Sean Hayes is someone whose style of comedy I've never found funny, ever, ever. And I've seen him in two different Broadway shows. One of which was Promises, Promises, and the other one was the show where he played God. And neither worked for me. People were rolling with laughter, thinking he was so funny, and I'm just sitting there with a big old frown on my face, and I'm just like, this is awful. But I didn't. I said clearly he. There's a demographic of people that have a certain sense of humor that he just tickles to death, and that's why he keeps getting work and in comedies. I will say I did not get to see his performance that he won a Tony for just now, but I hear he was brilliant in that. And but that was a drama. That was not a comedy. It was,
Yeah.
and so, um, yeah. So Sean Hayes is a good example of like, look, if everybody else is finding him funny, I guess I'll write that he killed that night. But like, yeah, even if it's not my cup of tea.
It's hard because I think as a critic, you also have to kind of prep the audience for what to expect. And so I think with comedies, like you just you have to kind of let them know what type of comedy is being done because again, like comedy is it's just like music, it's so relative to the
Mhm.
person. Like some people love slapstick, some people don't. Some people love like really dry humor, and people, so it's just like I think you have to describe what it is and then your reaction to it, but also your prejudices about it.
Yeah.
Like again, like
It,
if I don't like absurdist humor but I was laughing at this crazy, then that's really important to know, but which is all but also the opposite.
it's just hard because there's so many factors that go into the enjoyment of a Broadway show or musical. Like I wasn't a huge fan of Young Frankenstein. But it had funny parts. There were funny moments, and I do like the movie, but it was so long, and it just I don't know. It just felt like the same jokes over and over again, and And so I guess you just try your best to just explain your experience as well as you can.
Yep.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
Yep.
Um,
Agreed.
yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting that there's uh, two of these Salem
Not
trial
sure we understood that when we
comedies.
agreed to see the show. I would have seen it anyway, but that was
Yeah,
And
that's
definitely Chris
yeah,
forwarded to me. I thought it was the first one, the first
and let me
random.
just say to the producer, the press people, Ron, you know what you did. You know how you buttered me up in that article, saying like, we read what you wrote about Salem. We would love to invite you to this just to get your take. I know the games that you played. I'm not some TikTok influencer, so yeah, but like yeah, but to your point, Greg, I just think it's hilarious. We're like saying like maybe you shouldn't do a musical based on that, and apparently it's the thing now. So
Yeah, I guess so.
you know.
right.
It's like just
Yeah.
like Deep Impact and Armageddon. We got to have rival witch trial comedies. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's two great Gatsby's coming too to to Broadway.
Sure.
there you
Yeah.
Yeah.
go. Why not? Why
Yeah.
not? So
All right. Well, let's move on. We're going to talk about a recent article that you did, Chris. You talked about the top 10 musicals of the 2020s.
mm.
And so how did you come up with this 10 list?
Well, it's a list that I've been actually wanting to put out for a while now, and given that we're almost at the halfway point, and we've had some incredible pieces of musical theater that have premiered or opened over the past 4 years, I said, you know what, it's time. Let's get it out there. Let's see what's really good. And so I reached out to a couple of friends of mine who go see everything. I mean, these people live in New York. They live in the West End. They go see every single show that comes out. I don't know how they afford it because I know what they do for a living. But they go see it. And what's even better is that they are, and I don't want to sound ageist when I say this, but they are definitely above the age of 40 where they can compare decades to each other. So they're not going to say that like Dear Evan Hansen is the greatest piece of musical theater in the 21st century because they're 18 years old and that's it. So they have a good understanding. So I said, look, I'm looking to do a top 10. Give me your top 10. The only rule is that it has to have either premiered at like a, Williamstown Theater Festival or Utah Theater Festival, or it's had to have actually opened regionally, Broadway, off Broadway, West End, in the past 4 years. So since January 1st, 2020 to today, those are the two big rules. Interestingly enough, the lists that I got from the people almost to like 90% of them matched. So like nine is like almost like the folks that especially from the folks over from the West End had the exact two musicals in their top 10. The folks that were here in Broadway and New York had most of the same picks for everything. So it wasn't hard to say like, here's our top 10, let's rank them and go from there. So it was fun kind of going through because some of these I actually hadn't seen either. So it was fun to kind of do some listening, look at some bootlegs and all that fun stuff. So
Well, because some of them haven't come out yet, like Tammy Faye, that doesn't
yep.
come on Broadway until October.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a good list, but like, yeah, just to kind of highlight a couple of them. Number 10, I had Suffs, which is opening on Broadway this spring. It had an incredible, try, I don't want to say trial run, but kind of a run at the public last year and was very well received. And that one is going to be kind of at people's forefront of their minds when it comes to, the Tony Awards. And then the other one that's also opening this season that is high on our list was Lempicka. I apologize. I think I butchered the name of that. But that one's also getting, rave reviews from everybody that's seen it. And from the performances to the music to all of that, it's going to be fantastic. So, yeah, and then we had a couple from the West End that were on there, and one of which was Standing at the Sky's Edge, which has gotten rave reviews over there. You just mentioned it, Rachel. Tammy Faye, which is going to open up later this year on Broadway with Angie Randalls, which is, from what I hear, really, really fun. Elton John's doing the score for that one. And then the Little Big Things, which is definitely kind of one of those stories about overcoming obstacles, inclusive casting, especially when you talk about characters that are disabled, things like that. So yeah, it was great. It was great to have kind of that West End presence on this list.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I the only one that I can really speak to much is one of my I guess, big unpopular opinions as a theater critic is I just wasn't in love with Six. I didn't hate it. It was like okay, but I don't know. I just thought like it felt like it was a workshop to me. It didn't feel like it was finished. You know, you go in there and it's like really short. Like I mean, I guess mercifully short. I mean, 90 minutes. There's a point where you feel like, did I like just pay $100 for that? And I don't know. I just felt like I didn't get to know the women that well, and it just felt like okay, I went to a teenager like concert, not a Broadway show. It didn't have any sets. It didn't have any uh, like hardly any production of any kind. They didn't really tell much of a story, and it just I don't know. It just felt very karaoke, and I just didn't love it. I left very
Shots fired.
disappointed. Yeah, I
We just
left very
lost half our
disappointed. I
audience.
didn't think it was
Um,
great, especially when you compare it to something like Hamilton. I mean, come on.
right, right. Well, it's interesting. Like I started off asking everybody some of your top 20.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting was the differences between 20 and 10 or 20 and 11 and then 10 and 1. It fell off the cliff. I mean, with in the 20 you're talking about shows like Shucked, and you're talking about How to Dance in Ohio, which are
Mm-hmm.
fine shows, but they would only appear in the top 20 list for the
At
past
least those
4
have a
years.
story, and I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much more like heft to those shows than this. Like this felt like something you watch in Vegas in between gambling sessions to
Interesting
me.
enough, it's playing in Vegas.
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
you go. There it's a perfect Vegas show. So anyway, it was an interesting list, and some of the responses that I've gotten about it, especially putting a Strange Loop at number one and Kimberly Akimbo at number two were pretty well
Hmm.
received. Although I got a
Yeah,
bunch of people saying that like it should have been flipped, and I'm like, okay, fine. Like that's I think that there's a slivers thin margin between the two. Um, but yeah, I think what people need to understand is Olympica is the real deal. I think
I'm
it's going to sweep the
excited.
Tonys. And I've heard it. They've released like the first 7 minutes of the show online, so you can actually watch the opening number. It looks absolutely brilliant, and everybody who has seen it has said the same thing: is that it's not quite a change agent musical that's going to change the course of musical theater, but it definitely is by far and away one of the best pieces of musical theater that we've seen in the past couple of years. So,
Hmm.
yeah, so there you go.
I'm very excited for it. I, Greg, have you seen Six? No. Yeah, it's just a concert.
For our podcast listeners, Greg shook his head no, just so you know, when
I said,
asked. Oh, okay, it didn't come through
nope.
clearly. So
I said, nope.
that was for our video only. That was a treat for our video only fans, by the way. So there you go. Um,
Yeah, but people
but
love it. I have a friend
Just
who's seen it like I don't know how many times, like a dozen
it
times. So,
has a
you
very
know,
devoted fan base. So that fan base, I'm going to be
so
very interested to see how they react to this podcast. So we'll see.
yeah.
But anyways,
All right. So we were gonna end by doing a little game of Would
excellent.
You Rather.
Mhm.
Greg, why don't you take over on that?
Sure. We're gonna play the first ever edition of Would You Rather Theater
All
Style.
right, let's
So
do
what's
it.
gonna happen is I'm gonna pose Rachel and Chris some dilemmas, scenarios, questions, all related to theater. And they have to give me an answer. There's no waffling. You can't say no. You can't just say, oh,
there's
I
no
do both.
pass.
Like, there's no passing. You have to give me an answer, one or the other. No provisos. Well, I do this, but it, no, no, no. You gotta give me a clean answer, one way or another. I have not told you any of the questions. All right. So your reaction is going to be fresh. Um, and we're going to start off with some warm up. We're gonna do a little warm up here, some sort of easy-ish basic questions. Rachel, we'll start with you. Rachel,
All right.
would you rather from this point forward review only movies and you can't do theater, or only review theater but you can't do movies? You're a prolific movie and theater critic, but you have to choose one. Would you rather only review movies for the rest of your life or only review theater for the rest of your life?
Oh, that's so hard. Shoot. I think I would say theater.
Theater. Okay. Why is that?
Just because of the community around theater. and in how many friends I've made, and to be part of my community that's just not quite the same with movies. It's just an overall more like enriching personal, mental, and emotional kind of and social experience. But I would miss it very much, seeing the movies too. So,
I'm
but it's a
more
hard one.
Yeah, I think I would answer the same way only because I'm more optimistic about theater's future than I am the movie's future.
Yeah, it's
Just based
true.
on where movies are going and just unfortunately how, especially theater releases are just all catered towards a global audience that has to make $1 billion, otherwise they're not going
Yeah.
to do it. They're not going to try and do it. But Chris, how would you answer that real quick? Only
Yeah,
theater,
I
we're just like
probably
reviewing. We're just like reviewing. Yeah, reviewing
uh
theater movies.
I pick movies. Um,
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
less drama when you give a bad review.
that's true.
That is true.
Having spoken from many hate mail and response, I'm more than happy to get on the movie side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That is very, very true.
All right, Chris. Would you rather, let's say a Broadway producer comes to you and says, I've got the perfect show for you. I really want you involved. You can either act or direct it. And by acting, can't say the leading role, but like, a good role on it, or you get to direct it. And this is a Broadway show.
ooh,
It's not off
in a
Broadway,
Broadway production. Wow.
Broadway production. Let's assume you're ready for
Uh
it. Not so we don't have to get oh, I don't think I'd be good at this or that. Let's say you'd be confident enough to do
just
both.
just from what I've seen from how directors on Broadway work and how they do things and the speed in which they do things, I'd probably pick directing, to be quite honest with you. Because um I won't say the director's name, but very famous director would basically come in for like rehearsals for 6 weeks and then the show would be frozen. It would open previews and he'd fly back to his home state, which is like across the country, and then collect paychecks for like the next year it was on Broadway. So
Well, I remember when we were doing the preview, that Dear Evan Hansen director, I can't think of the name,
Michael
but
Greif, yeah.
he was like on 4 projects. I'm like, how did he do this? It was
And he'll
amazing.
never win a Tony because of that. But
You're
yeah, no.
choosing directing because it's the least amount of work. Is it? Did I hear you correctly?
And the highest amount of return, like you're gonna get paid the most. So, and that's the thing, like you will get as a director, you will guarantee to get paid. As an actor, like you only get paid for as long as the show runs. The director, I get my money up front. So there you go.
Okay. Okay. All
That's a
right.
good point.
That's a fair answer.
Fiscal
All about.
responsibility. Yeah, exactly.
I don't
All
think
right.
I could
Next.
give up that like thrill of the of the performance. I mean, if I could really see, because I'm like the worst dancer in the world. So like, but if I had the skills, like that, it's so exciting. So I think I would probably pick acting.
Would you rather be able to watch the stage version of Aladdin, but only the stage version of Aladdin, paired with the movie version of Lion King,
Which
or the
one?
reverse,
Which
or the
Lion
re-
King?
fair point. The animated one, yeah,
Oh,
the OG, yeah,
okay.
or the reverse, or you only get the movie version of Aladdin, the animated one, and the stage version of Lion King. Which one are you picking?
I choose
Chris,
death.
Mm.
start with you.
C3, death. Death. No. Um,
You're
no,
swimming. You're just swimming until
I'm
you.
just gonna
Hard
swim. I'm
one.
jumping the ocean. I'm gonna go with um stay movie version of Aladdin, stage version of Lion King. I think the stage version of Aladdin is atrocious. I can't wait for it to close. It's
Whoa.
it's bad. It's like
Uh, Chris, I'm
yeah.
taking my daughter to see this in a
I
couple
didn't
weeks. So
mind
please
it.
don't tell
Oh,
I
her.
didn't hate it. I mean, the thing that I thought that Aladdin benefited from is that it actually had additional songs from Howard Ashman, in Proud of Your Boy and things like that. That to me made it better than some of these other Disney remakes. And then it's pretty close to the movie. So I don't know. I've been I definitely have these Disney ones that I don't care for, like Mary Poppins, for example. but I didn't mind Aladdin. It wasn't like my favorite, but I didn't mind it.
Rach,
But
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. I'm going to tell that.
I'm right there with you, Rachel, with the more Howard Ashman songs. The problem is there's also a lot of Glenn Slater songs in there that he wrote with Alan Menken, and they are
yeah.
it falls off a cliff. So yeah.
All right. Let's
Um,
keep moving.
I
Let's keep
would I
moving.
would pick also the stage Lion King because I think that I just think it is superior to the staged Aladdin, even though I enjoyed it. Yeah.
All right. Now we're moving on to the main event. This is where it gets trickier.
This is hard.
Let's start with Rachel. Rachel, would you
Yes.
rather watch Hamilton from the front row seat, but to do so, you have to sit next to someone eating pizza and texting on their phone the entire time,
Mm-hmm.
or you get a nosebleed seat to Dear Evan Hansen, but you get to watch it completely within, you know.
I would pick Hamilton. I enjoyed Dear Evan Hansen. To be perfectly frank, this is maybe unpopular. I don't really get that bothered by people and their behaviors. I mean, somebody has to be really, really bad, like yelling in my ear bad for me to, I don't know, I just get so absorbed in it. It doesn't bother me. I still don't do it because I know it bothers other people very much. But me personally, I don't know. I just get it especially people like texting stuff. I don't even notice it. And I don't know why. It just doesn't bother me the way it bothers other people. So I would pretty quickly phase out the person next to me and just enjoy the experience. So
Chris, would
yeah.
you agree with that? Would you, about you?
I'm on the so Rachel, God bless you. I'm the one the type of the people that if someone's across the theater and I hear them unwrapping a candy, or God help them if they cough during a dramatic scene, it's probably because I have ADHD and it throws me for a loop.
Right.
So yes, like I'll put it this way. I went and saw How to Dance in Ohio, incredible performance. Person next to me was wearing the most offensive cologne ever, and it threw me for a loop the entire show. It was hard, and he was perfectly well behaved, silent, sitting there clapping, emotional. It was great. He just smelled terrible and threw me the entire time. So I would choose, even though I'm not a huge Dear Evan Hansen fan. I would pick a nosebleed, maybe take a nap. I don't know, like as long as I'm going for free and not spending my own money, yes, I'll do that. Yes, that's
What
fine.
would you pick, Greg?
Oh gosh, I would figure out a way to tolerate sitting next to someone with a full thing of pizza and texting, talking on their phone, whatever, just for the front row seat. I can't do nosebleeds anymore. It's just like, yeah, what's the
Yeah.
point? But all right, next, Chris, you're up next. You've done a lot of college auditions, right? You auditioned many,
Yep.
many college students. Would you rather listen to 200 untrained college students audition who all try to sing like Joel Grey in Cabaret? So they're all auditioning with, cabaret songs, and they're all going for it, trying to be like exactly like Joel Grey. Okay.
Yep.
Or listen to 200 untrained white men college students earnestly audition to songs from Bring Into Noise, Bring Into Funk. You got to pick
Ooh.
one. You got to pick which one are you guys? Which one are you sitting through?
Again, yes, but no. Considering I've sat through close to one of them, I would rather sit
Which
through the
one?
Joel Greys. The so I we had this was early on. This was before the BIPOC movement of 2018. We had someone come in and do an entire monologue from, I think it was Raisin in the Sun, and it was um really talking about how I'm a black man and what I'm going through, my plight. And it
This
was
person was
like
right.
the whitest of white. Like you couldn't, blonde hair, blue eyes, curly blonde hair. I think his name, and I don't think this was actually his name, but his name was something like Sylvester or something like along those lines. You could not have gotten more white than this kid. And I remember the two people that were behind the table with me was someone was there were two faculty members, one of which was an African American woman. And to her credit, to this day, and I wish I remembered her name because I would definitely shout her out. She like gave this student like an actual like critique and like asked the student like, why did you pick this monologue? Are you going through something in your own life that you can relate to the material? Like, what does it mean to you? Kid had no reasonable answers for like why he did that. So, so I would, and I've sat through kids. By the way, no disrespect to any high school student auditioning, but if you're doing Wheel Woman from Cabaret as your audition material and you're a male, you're 9 times out of 10 you're going to sound like Joel Grey, whether you know it or not. So don't do that song, number one. But yeah, it happens. So I would go with that.
I think for me, listening to that Joel Grey imitators 24 hours would be my personal hell. As much as his performance is good, there's only one Joel Grey. It would be so cringe to try and hear people do that.
I mean, if you'll indulge me with a quick story,
please.
This is not Joel Grey, but this is another situation where I was at a high school audition in Texas at Texas Thespians, and this one school, which was an all-female school, literally had their students direct the same movement during their monologue. No matter what monologue it was, no matter what character they played, they would get up out of a chair, walk to stage left, walk to stage right, go behind the chair, and finish their monologue sitting down. 20 girls in a row did the same movement around stage. And we're all looking at each other in the audience being like, and these kids are auditioning in front of a crowd of like 50 schools. And we're all looking at each other like this is so I felt bad because like by the time we got to like number 8 and we could see what was happening, like every time a girl did that, we all started laughing or trying to keep in our laughter. And they're doing dramatic monologues, but they're all doing the same exact motion. They're all wearing long skirts. It was hilarious. So yes, I've been through that hell before. I would take that over the misappropriation.
Okay. All right.
That's
Rachel, I got one for you. Don't
Okay.
worry. Left out. I got one just for you. Okay.
All right.
Would you rather review a community theater musical version of Back to the Future, but only done with bagpipes? Okay.
Okay.
Or a community theater review of Chicago, except Chicago is sung in the style of the weird, creepy mask guy in Eyes Wide Shut. So all the music is sung like. Have you seen that movie, Rachel? Right?
I haven't seen it, but
No, I was going to check with you, and I just assumed you must have seen that movie.
I know it's a Christmas movie. I really should.
It's a Christmas movie, yeah. Maybe we'll play it in the YouTube clip, but it's this weird chanting like going on. It's just
I've
like
seen clips and stuff. I know. I think I know what you're talking about. Okay, so it's what are the musicals?
Back to the Future, but with bagpipes, or Chicago, but all sung from like that creepy orgy and
oh, that's a tough one. I think I'd rather have the background music be bagpipes than the actual singing be.
Yeah, no, it's only bagpipes. Yeah, nothing, all bagpipes. No provisos.
Oh, there's no singing at all.
It's just bagpipes. Yeah, that's all.
Oh, okay.
I
think I'd still pick Back to the Future. But I don't know. That one's hard. Yeah, I think I'd pick Back to the Future.
Which rather? Yeah. Okay. I think I would too. As much as Eyes Wide Shut is a brilliant movie, and that scene is brilliant, not for non-sexual reasons. But,
yeah.
Chris, any quick opinions on that?
No, the second that you said Eyes Wide Shut, I knew where you're going, and I appreciate the question. I think I'm with Rachel. I bagpipes can be very pretty to listen to, so maybe listening to the Power of Love.
This is why I say
amateurs.
These are amateurs.
Yeah, I still go Back to the Future.
All right, let's do like 2 more.
Okay.
Let's do. We just did Rachel. All right, Chris. Would you rather have every single friend forward you every negative thing said about OnStage Blog for 24 hours straight? Or would you rather listen to Russell Crowe sing every Stephen Sondheim song ever written for 24 hours straight?
Well, considering my friends do this, whether I ask them to do it or not, all the time, and it hurts all the time. Just to my friends out there, you know what you're doing when you send me these things. So I would take, even though, and for those of fans who longtime listeners of our podcast know that we dubbed an award after Russell Crowe being the worst singer in any movie musical, I'd still take him singing like an entire album of him, an entire album, concert tour, press junket of him just doing Sondheim. Um, I'm already imagining him doing Send in the Clowns. Isn't it rich? Aren't we? So yeah, I still take that though.
Right, right. Okay. Okay. Um, Rachel, do you have a quick opinion you want to offer on that while we clear
Yeah,
this?
I'm like, I want to say that I would pick like hearing the criticism because I'm a critic, but it might be overwhelming after a while, so I can listen to some bad singing.
It always is overwhelming.
Okay. Uh, okay. Let me finish. I think, Rachel, I ran through all of yours. I really want to end on this one.
Do
All
it both
right.
for both of us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Would you rather have Charlotte St. Martin come back and receive a lifetime appointment to run the Broadway League or Scott Rudin?
I don't know a ton about either of these, to
Well,
be
that's why
perfectly
I know, Rach.
frank.
That's why it's really a Chris one.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you answer that one?
Oh, like you ever see those journeys where like one you're going to be walking over shards of glass and the other you're going to be walking over fire and like neither are good. They're just bad in different ways. This is that type of choice. Here's the thing. This is what it comes down to for me. I'd rather take Charlotte St. Martin because she's a moron and a puppet um and easily manipulative by the people and the powers around her. Scott Rudin, to his credit, listens to nobody. He beats to his own drum, and that has also made him as dangerous and problematic. But the problem is he has that bullying opportunities to be able to get what he wants. And that would scare the pants off of me and a lot of other people. With Charlotte, yeah, it just like she would go with the tide of popular opinion and certain things and represent rich people very well. So that we could
Okay.
manage. And
Okay.
she's very dumb. So yeah, I'll take that. Love you, Charlotte. Friend of the blog.
Didn't Scott
Oh
Rudin
yeah,
not didn't
she
didn't
loves us. Yeah. Oh
didn't Scott Rudin not pay people? Like, wasn't that a whole thing with
yeah.
that Paradise Lost musical?
Oh no, that's Garth Drabinsky, who is
Oh,
another
okay.
that
Getting
Greg.
my
That's
people
option
confused.
C in this multiple choice question. Should it be Garth Drabinsky? No, that's equally bad. He's the Canadian Scott Rudin. So there you go.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
All right, Rachel. Let me end. All right, let me end this for you. Would you rather watch a musical where, like, the last 5 years of Tony Award winners are involved, but they're only ensemble people, while rank amateurs are in the lead and horribly missinging whatever
Oh,
song it is? Or you watch a musical where actors break the fourth wall to yell at misbehaving audience members every 5 minutes of a
oh.
musical? Would you rather? Which one would you rather watch?
Definitely the first for sure.
Yeah.
That second one sounds so annoying. Again, because I'm just not really that impacted by audience. I don't know. I just able to kind of I have a very like I have a very sort of ability to just like laser focus on whatever it is. And sometimes to my detriment because I can't really multitask that well. So I just boom. And so it doesn't really bother me that much. So it would actively take me out of the moment to have the people on stage comment on the audience
Yeah,
because I'm
it had
just not
happened.
noticing it. Yeah.
We've written about it, and I
Yeah.
haven't had a show where it happens,
Patty
but I
LuPone did it.
right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you've actually been at a show where someone breaks the fourth wall and to admonish the audience over something or other, Chris?
I think he crashed.
Oh,
I've never had anybody admonish somebody, but I've had like it's fun when people well, like wink, wink, kind of a thing. Like I saw I saw Midsummer's Night Dream last year that was like completely just soaked rain at the Utah Shakespeare Festival, and one of the revelers, he made a joke about the rain and
Yeah.
everything, and it was kind of fun, and we were all kind of laughing together. So like
Yeah.
that kind of thing I enjoy, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just like, the show must go on. Just don't do it.
Yeah, I've seen it all. Like, and breaking the fourth wall, especially depending upon the show, never a good idea. So, like, I saw a show where an audience member ran up on stage in the middle of the show to plug their iPhone into what they thought was a working plug on the
Oh my
side. So,
gosh.
um, like,
Wow.
yeah, these things happen. So,
That's crazy.
That's all I got. That's all I got for Would You
Wow.
Rather. Good
Wow.
job. Well done.
good stuff.
Well, let us know what you think. What
We'll post
would
some
you?
of these on social.
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
fun.
Sorry, Rachel. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and maybe even in the description on the video, we could post some of these, and people can tell us what they think. But this was a fun discussion. I hope you all enjoyed listening. And Chris, how can people follow the site and follow you and everything you have to do?
Yeah, well, thankfully we are at OnStage Blog on pretty much everything. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and all that stuff. So you can find us and see all of our content. And yeah, we got a lot of great stuff on the blog right now. We're churning away, and it's been awesome. So definitely check us out.
What about you, Greg?
Oh, and same. Yeah, I mean, I'm writing for OnStage Blog along with Chris, and then also don't forget about On Screen Blog, where we tweet and write about movies on social media. Again, On Screen Blog on Twitter and Facebook, as well as you can find it on Screen Blog on onstageblog.com as a subsection.
And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, and at rachelsreviewstheater.com, and at Utah Theater Bloggers. You can find a bunch of my reviews there as well. And so check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.